Now I'll go into a little bit more detail about the TPC unit, the track power controller, and Lionel's AVC accessory voltage controller. Uh, First off, the TPC unit allows you to vary the voltage, set the max voltage, and also can run primarily its goal is to run conventional trains and regulate the fixed power coming out of the 180 watt powerhouse. It also does a very nice job, speaking of conventional trains, of running MTH Protoson 1, 2, and I believe 3 as well in a conventional environment, and it will allow you to do some features via the remote, including the electric couplers, and certain keystrokes allow you to access some of the passenger freight announcements, and it really runs those locomotives well. It's been a long time, but I did have a few Rail King engines that I was running conventionally. I got rid of them when I switched over to full-scale locomotives, but I might think about acquiring some MTH locomotives in the future because it just does such a nice job. Once you get out of the neutral sequence and the locomotive begins moving, that's one thing MTH did well. The engines run very smoothly and conventional with the speed control. Once they're underway, it's really hard to tell. The smoke still smokes like crazy. Granted, that gets adjusted manually by the volume screw on those locomotives, but they run great. And the other main minor feature that's really important, the TPC allows you to cut power to the whole layout with the halt button on the legacy remote. That's the one hiccup. If you don't have a TPC or a legacy Power Master, which is the modern version of this, and actually is more affordable than this, unless you find one of these on a deal, uh, and these have to be wired in because they don't take the signal from the air like the legacy Power Master does. But it allows the halt feature to cut power to the track in the event of a derailment. Otherwise, if you don't have this or Power Master, when you hit the halt feature, it stops the trains, but it doesn't cut the power. So if you have a short situation or derailment, you still have power going to the track, and the TMCC lock-on will pop and reset and pop and reset and pop and reset. And this will go before the breaker on the brick, but so you get the story. And the AVC unit also regulates fixed voltage that comes out of the powerhouse, but this doesn't allow the variability to operate a train. It's basically you set your throttle at any voltage you desire, and then you lock that in, and then it will output that voltage. It's not designed to issue the same commands as a TPC unit. A TPC unit will issue the same forward, neutral, reverse commands in a conventional environment. So for starters, we'll address the TPC unit and turn it on. I have it set as track 1, so we'll hit track 1 and then boost. You can hear my freight sounds reefer in the distance. And then this is when the voltmeter comes into play. Take your voltmeter, and we put it on the input side of the TPC unit. We're at 17.6. So, a little less than half a volt is being used by the TMCC lock-on. It needs power to operate, not out of character. And we look on the output side. I have this set to full voltage, but we lose another volt or so to the TPC unit, which it needs power to operate. So it's taking but 16.5 volts. All my trains run very well at this voltage. It's not an issue for me. In my mind, it's a little bit more peace of mind. I'd rather be down below the peak voltage in case there's a problem. Some guys, you got to be 18. Some guys try to push 19. I just don't think it's necessary. I've run my trains as low as 14. I've done transitional command control where you actually get a conventional locomotive going with the TPC unit. You get that moving along at a good pace, and hopefully you're on 12, 13, maybe 14 volts. And then you can address your command control locomotive separately and begin running that. And it's not ideal, but they will run with little, if any, issues. I mean, I've run TMCC locomotives on very low voltage. It really isn't. I mean, all the smoke units, everything seemed to perform the same. So to demonstrate, we'll come over to the track here and we'll take a look at my track voltage. Again, voltmeter, handy, 12 20 bucks, give or take, when you don't know what you're. So we come over here and get these on here. 16.4. Again, 14 gauge wire, bus and feeders. Come over here to my blocks. You can see here, there's a break in the hot wire. And when you make a block, you only need to break the center rail. The commons can all stay attached. And the only thing that gets toggled is your center rail. So you only run the hot wire, will go from your distribution or your transformer to the input of a toggle and then back out to the track. And then you'll attach the hot somewhere on the block between the two ends that are broken. Here, I didn't have enough room for Lionel's fast track, block track, which are nice when you can fit them in. They're neater. I cut this with a Dremel. It actually made kind of a bigger gap than I care to have, so I put a piece of styrene in there. But we'll check the voltage on this. Let's turn it on by the toggle. Oh, let's get on the track here. 16.5, 16.4, thereabouts. And my toggles over here are just your run-of-the-mill hardware store toggles here. I don't have everything I have is crude. There's some other guys on here. Sean's Train Channel comes to mind. His layout's absolutely beautiful, furniture-grade layout. Mine, not so much. It's all really basic. I'm planning on maybe cleaning things up or dressing things up down the road. But I'm getting to the point now, this layout's old enough, I'm wondering, I haven't thought about it yet, but at some point I may end up changing it or rebuilding it. So we'll turn that block off, and then the next two tracks where the reefers are and this track passing through in the middle are also separate from the main line. So we'll turn this on. We'll get our voltmeter in here again. $16.4, 16.5. So there, power is consistent. Another handy thing is the lighted bumpers from Lionel, the fast track. Some guys have had some issues getting those to work properly. Mine were primarily tied to the track connections. I had to tweak those a little bit, just like the rest of the layout, for good connection, and they've always worked. And they're nice because you know if you have power. Power's off, power's on. Same thing down the way here. I have a double throw toggle on my steam track in the distance here. You can just make it out. And left track, right track, if you look at the very front of that locomotive, and the middle is off. So that's kind of neat. I know which side of the track I'm, powering up. And we'll switch over to the AVC unit now. And this is a little different. It doesn't allow conventional operation, but it's a really nice component for setting your accessory voltage to the proper amount. It really makes things run well. I love the power out of these powerhouses. They run everything better than the two CW80s I had before. I had two CW80s for accessories. I now use one powerhouse to do the work of both of those, and it's just good power. Everything runs better, lights are brighter, run smoother at a lower voltage. So we'll come over here and we'll check this. We have to address that first. And that is TR2, and to turn that on, we hit auxiliary 1.5. So now accessories should be on. And it'll come over here. 18 volts on the input side. Output's just about 10 volts, which is right where I want it. All my accessories at 10 volts. So there you have it. And just something short and sweet to discuss more about powering up a layout. The Lionel powerhouses and the TPC and the AVC unit. I hope everyone has a great weekend.